Being neurodivergent is a complex cosmopolitan of nuances that are individual. My challenges aren't the same as yours, nor are the labels we hold, but I'm drawn to share with you and reveal my truth, to let down my mask and show you my hidden narrative. I seek harmony in the cacophony of voices directing, dictating, and divulging day after day after day after day, in hopes we can communicate beyond this surface of human flesh, authentically, honestly, and with heart. One vessel to another, I'm here, boundless.
People who are neurodivergent suffer because of the environments we have to exist in. They don't enable our strengths, instead they're highlighting our weaknesses. I wish we could all learn and grow from our differences. Everyone has a different way of thinking, and neurodivergent people should be given the opportunity to fly out of the nest and find the richness in the world and bring it back to the people that don't have that. I understand and respect that there are many degrees of being neurodivergent. The spectrum is vast, and every neurodivergent person has their own individual struggles and strengths, and they have to navigate them in this neurotypical world. And my goal is to bridge the gap for neurodivergent people in whatever way I can through the arts.
Something that I wanted to share is the language that's used around neurodiversity and neurodivergent. Forgive me if you already know this. This is something that I came across quite recently and I found it really helpful. So neurodiversity is something that everybody is part of. You are all neurodiverse because we have new environments, our biology makeup is all different, how we are nurtured from a young age, our experiences are all different. So therefore we are all neurodiverse. But somebody who is neurodivergent essentially has the process of the brain which is set up differently. So people who are dyslexic, people with autism, ADHD, there are a number of labels, and I do use that word labels because it has a lot of negatives that come with that. But essentially there is something about really understanding that language and how we communicate in that language.
This project was kind of going in very observantly and very openly to kind of see what we would find together as a whole team of all the different people and all the different conversations that we were having very presently. We're really touching in and tuning into my unique way of perceiving and being in the world with my own neurodiversities and perceptions, and really allowing myself to listen in and go with those intuitions rather than blocking them out or numbing myself to try and fit into somebody else's way of working. And I think it was this conversation of how do we all be very true to ourselves and bring that into the room rather than blocking any of ourselves out.
I really wanted to create a world for people to get lost in, and I wanted people to experience what it could be like if we were to be more sensitive to one another's neurodiversity, and for us to demonstrate what that could look like for us. And I think words just fail me sometimes, and visuals and sounds and textures never do. Projects like this where you can create a world and something that is so nuanced to you, you can actually physicalize it and begin to feel at peace, which I think is a very difficult thing. I don't often feel at peace, and so yeah, just being able to like create an environment through all those different layers, like that's just such an incredible thing to be able to do with technology. I think where it falters is accessibility. You know, it's pricey. Not everyone has the capacity to be able to access great technology. Also, learning the programs is, once you know, it's not easy, but it's like, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I can do that. But then it's finding the time and the resources to be able to learn. So, and for me, learning new things doesn't come very easily. I get quite triggered about learning things and new things and being in those situations where you're not knowing. So that's definitely been like a personal challenge.
Dr. Helen Taylor, she's a researcher at Cambridge University, and she researches dyslexia, specifically how humans learn and create the knowledge that we need to adapt. And when sharing her research with me, she used the analogy, which it's really stuck with me. She talked about the hive, a beehive, and how every bee has a job. You have the honeybees who make the honey inside of the hive. You've got the bouncer bees who protect the space and check the pollen coming in, whether it's going to be poisonous or whether it's good honey, and they protect the door. And then you've got the bees who go out into the environment and they look for the pollen, the best pollen to bring back to the hive. Every bee has a job. Every bee is important. Every bee has worth. That analogy, when reflected into our society, is something that we can really learn from, and we all hold value as humans. Neurodivergent people, like neurotypical people, have strengths and weaknesses. The strengths of neurodivergent people are often overlooked, but some of them that I can think of that are obviously not specific to every neurodivergent person.
You know, we see things in great detail and we can see like a 360 plan of something from every angle. It's scientifically proven that we're more empathetic, which means that when it comes to delivering work like that, you know, I do see that I have a skill set where I'm able to connect with people on a very personal level, and that informs the work. And I think that that is so important, that we see each other as humans and not as a dancer or as a costume designer. We're all people and we all have value. And I think because my value has often been diminished because of the label of being neurodivergent, then I seek that even more in people, because I don't want anyone to feel like that, you know, that they don't hold value. Or so yeah, I think there's a running theme in my work around that. But yeah, I would never say that I suffer being neurodivergent. I suffer because the environments aren't set up to support me.
Elizabeth, as part of your work, you've done a lot of research into neurodivergent ways of working. Can you talk about some of the differences you found in the approaches and working practices compared to experiences of being in an environment that isn't sensitive to neurodivergent people?
In terms of spaces and how they're set up,
through my previous company, Move Beyond Words, we did a research project which was supported by One Dance UK and commissioned by Run Bear School. And it was looking at creating a better understanding of preferred learning styles and then giving guidance on areas of supporting dancers in high-pressured environments and providing practical tools to help ourselves look after our well-being.
And a lot of the feedback that we were getting was around before you got into the space. So, you know, providing if there's an audition or a meeting or, you know, anything, that you give the details ahead of time to someone, And so they can go and have a look at the space, because there's something very uncomfortable about walking into a space that you haven't been in before. There's just a big anxiety around that.
Having that inside information in advance really supports those spaces.
And especially auditions, you know, like it's a really high pressured environment. It's very stressful before you even get into the space. So if casting directors could just provide that information, you know, ahead of time, or say, you know, get there half an hour early, just, you know, meditate into the space and, you know, let us help you with anything that you need. Like, it would just change things so dramatically, I think. There's definitely a lack of understanding around how it impacts people personally. I think it's very complex as well. My needs aren't the same as somebody else's. And so, you know, I can understand that tailoring to all of these people and all of these different needs is expensive, it's time consuming. But I think there are some very small, subtle things that we could do to create an environment that is more supportive and nourishing.
These are all findings from a research project we did through Move Beyond Words, which was supported by Limbury Trust and JJ Charitable Trust, looking at ways we can create accessible spaces for those with dyslexia.
And it's very small things, like send a picture of the location that they're going to a few days in advance so they can picture where they're heading to. That's a big one. Make sure their travel plans are set and that they know where they're going, because getting lost is often something that happens, and time management. That's just a really simple thing, like send a picture of the space. Like, how long does that take? That's not a big thing.
Let the performer know how many people are involved in the production and what company members will be there in an audition setting and what the roles are. And casting directors must be willing to invite questions no matter what they are, and to not diminish the questions if they seem irrelevant or they feel like they've answered them before. Just let people have the space to share what they need to. And then a huge thing would be to invite any neurodivergent dancers, especially in an audition setting, bring them to the front of the room, you know, invite them to the front of the room. Obviously there's no kind of dictating, but you know, there's an invitation here for any people who are neurodivergent to come to the front of the room so that they can eliminate any distractions that there might be between you and the choreographer. That would just be incredible. And then casting directors also, if they could make time for the dancers to mark the choreography, again, this is in an audition setting, just to give them a little bit more time before the final audition. And something as well is just making sure that the neurodivergent people go into the last group so they've got time to watch the choreography a few more times, because repetition is incredibly helpful. So they're just like a few structural things in an audition setting that would massively help people who are neurodivergent feel more relaxed and enabled within that space.
Ask the question, is anybody here neurodivergent? Come and chat to us. If there's anything we can do to support and facilitate, we will do. Like, that's a huge thing for casting directors, because then instantly you're enabling a safe space for people to, you know, be seen within.
You know, there's also a lot of ways that neurodivergent people can help themselves as well. Companies can provide free resources as well. You know, things that I know work for me. Ahead of high-pressured environments that I'm going to go into, I make sure that I meditate, that I work out why I'm going there, what's my purpose, why am I going to put myself into a situation that induces my anxiety. Having a clear why enables me to remove myself and my challenges and have a greater purpose. And that ensures my anxiety just stays at bay. So, everyone has their own ways in which they work, and it's our responsibility to find them, seek them out, talk to people, find what works for a friend. And I think finding your own value and reminding yourself of your own value, what makes you unique, what makes you valuable to this process, and just having those clear intentions before going into an audition or going into a meeting that feels daunting. Be clear in what your why is. Funding for neurodivergent projects has spiked, and I think that's partly due to the Arts Council England highlighting diversity and inclusion in their 3 investment principles for NPOs. Organisations have become increasingly aware and active in making systemic changes and supporting projects with a neurodivergent focus. And I think that's wonderful. And I just really hope that we start to see a shift.
I do also see that there's a lot of value that people are taking from the work that I'm making and that Charlotte Edmonds and I had previously made through our company Move Beyond Words. There was a lot of value being put on that. I actually think it's worse for us to stay silent, because I think people have so many preconceptions that are so incredibly irrelevant and inaccurate that it's actually dangerous, I think, to stay silent. And we're missing the opportunities that come from being neurodivergent if we don't talk. I just think it's so important that we stop hiding, and if I can keep facilitating spaces where people can begin to feel comfortable and talk about what experiences they're going through, that's fantastic, and I really want to continue doing that, because it really matters. Everybody's experience matters, and I think we can really suffer in silence, and we don't have to. And also, we don't have to suffer. We have to vocalize what we need. What do you need to feel comfortable, and is it possible? And I think because spaces are really listening now, that's an opportunity that we shouldn't miss. I was first diagnosed in primary school. They thought that I was definitely dyslexic. I was very, very behind my class, but I was always quite quiet, and I was very good at blending in. Just kind of not being too noisy and not being too quiet to make alarm bells go. I was very good at copying, and I knew when to go to the toilet. In spelling tests and in math tests, I knew that could be a reason to be oh yeah, it's because I went to the toilet that my marks are so bad. So I found ways to go undetected for a really long time, and then it got to a point where we were doing our SATs tests, and then my marks were just reception age, and that's when things started to click for the headmaster. And I spent a lot of time in the headmaster's office outside of my class, and because they didn't have the support workers to work with me, they were getting him to work with me, but he wasn't able to because he's the headmaster of a school and he's got other things to do. Anyway, it got to a point where I was really, really far behind. The school wouldn't do a test, and I think it's still quite like that because it's quite expensive. It's really hard to get an actual diagnosis. So my mum changed me schools, and I got a test there, and it came back ADD, which now isn't a terminology anymore, it's ADHD. But they used to give girls ADD and boys ADHD because of the hyperness came often in boys, physically running around, but for girls often they would try and hold it in. So like they fidget and hyper focus on things, which is something that I do. So I didn't explore that even probably the last 3 years. I've actually really looked into my ADHD because it was very much kind of just pushed to the side and dyslexia was the focus. But actually ADHD probably impacts me more than my dyslexia, because once I've got something in my head, I cannot stop. I need to do this to get my head clear of, just like, so I can get the full picture and I can share it with you. But I think I'm going to struggle to be present if I don't get that done, if that's okay. Yeah. I'll try and do this as quick as possible. Like, it's actually painful to be pulled out of something that I need to do. Even if it's the order of things that I do things in the morning, I just have to do things in a certain way, and I really can struggle with like control. So that's definitely something that I recognise more now. And I think some of the achievements that I have achieved over the years is testament to that hyper-focus. In lockdown I was running 2 businesses at the same time with like 2 teams of people and doing at points like 10, 20 projects simultaneously with really small teams. And that's because I was hyper-focused. But then you have burnout, and then that's when I've had to rein things in and really look at how can I manage this in a way that works for me and my family. I'm the only one who's vocal about being neurodivergent, and for the future generation of people that come after us, I want them to be able to be like, yeah, and what? Does it matter? Because the world hopefully by then will be set up in a way that, doesn't make it a problem. And I don't want them to feel like a problem. That's one of the big reasons that I'm so vocal about it, is that there's a future of children in our family that, and beyond our family, that need people to be speaking up and just exploring ways that we can support one another. It's genetic, so it's highly likely. And I now have the tools to be able to support him in a way that, no fault of my mum or dad, there just wasn't the support there that they needed to facilitate a space for me. So now I can do that and make sure that he goes to the right schools and, has the right kind of curriculum for the way that his mind works. And I'll be very sensitive to that. But I think when it comes to living in a neurotypical world as someone who's neurodivergent, often I can feel panic going to new spaces, and I can get very anxious, and often that shows with me kind of fiddling with my hands or my feet, or just trying to control things maybe a little bit too much. And looking up. I constantly try and find blank spaces so that I can give my mind a space to breathe, because I'm constantly taking in so much information, which is a great skill but also can be very overwhelming. So there's things that I have to mask in order to keep moving forward. I trained in musical theatre, and I always felt like I was trying to fit into somebody else's body, and I always felt like I was trying to please somebody else. And in 2016 I did an improvisational course at the place, London Contemporary Dance School, and I had never done improvisation before in that kind of contemporary world, and it blew my mind, and I cried because I had not known that world existed for so long, and I felt so at home in my body for the first time, and I promised myself that I would never try to please other people with my movement again and be apologetic about who I was and what my truth was, because it was so fucking beautiful to see everybody in that space be themselves. I ended up working with dancers over the age of 50 for a very long time, and they trained me in the importance of being yourself unapologetically, because they've got restrictions in their bodies, they've got ailments in different ways, but that does not stop them in any way of just moving and being in their own body. Like, it's the most beautiful thing to have worked with them. And it was like that, they were the first steps back into dance for me. And it was so therapeutic. That was then really important for me to just continue, because I finally felt that dance enabled me to be seen in a place that I knew I loved, but I really struggled with in so many ways when I was performing. I really struggled with the audition process and the demand and the fast pace. Like, I can pick up choreography, but the amount of work that it takes for me to do that and to feel comfortable is like insane. Like, the things that I would do, like the hours and hours of extra repetition that I would do compared with my peers was like crazy. But that was the only way that I could feel confident that I wouldn't have a blackout or I wouldn't like forget things. So yeah, I think like contemporary has definitely been like a lifesaver for me in so many ways. And yeah, just being able to create that space for the people now is really special. I had one lady in lockdown actually say that the workshops that we provided through Creative Dance London, she said if it wasn't for these, I don't think I'd still be here. And like having feedback like that, you're like, wow, like this actually really matters. And people need to be seen through their body, not just through their words. I'm thinking today we go through all the intentions in blocks. Intentions in terms of like the quality of movement, the like narrative that we want to capture, and then we can marry up movements to those intentions and emotions in that narrative, and then that then gives us a really clear path to then begin to shape movement. We'll do a warm-up first, and then definitely we can dive in for sure. And I think as well, like with this project being about like the masks that we so naturally have, there's something about this process where we are controlling with our body the situation as opposed to the situation like controlling our bodies, which so much in dance we are dictated to. And so with this project, you know, we will be controlling the lighting, the music, everything through our body. So yeah, I think it serves a purpose to start with movement. Having a feeling of being singled out and finding your way, just looking around, like being compelled up and onto the stage. Being neurodivergent, I often feel like I'm trying to fit into the crowd. But when I'm in like quite a liberated creative space, there's a feeling of like release and of like coming home. Yeah, it's almost like there's not necessarily a control, that almost like the stage is like pulling you there. Yeah, maybe you just take your time there, just kind of, yeah, take a breath and, yeah, feel that kind of energy coming up, center yourself, and then we can go. I initially wanted to choreograph the whole piece. There was a few reasons why I decided for it to be more movement direction as opposed to strictly choreographed. And that was because, one, Hannah has this quality of movement that is very raw and honest, and I didn't want to add a component of her having to think about what move came next. And I wanted her to fully experience her physicality as an extension of what she was feeling inside, as opposed to, you know, this choreographed piece. One of the other reasons was the SOMI 1 sensors we didn't program them because we had to bring in another sound designer, but they could only come into the project later. So choreographing, for me, I wanted to have the sounds at the very beginning and have the tech working, so then I could choreograph with the sounds that were being made, and that would kind of inform how I moved with the tech, but we couldn't do that. So that then became quite an interesting experience of, initially I wanted to control the technology and control everything, but having to then switch the method and have the dance as like the foundation instead of the technology as the foundation was actually really beautiful, because it reminded me of how important the human element of performance is, which, you know, the technology then became an embellishment of the dance as opposed to the other way around. And I'm really glad that that happened. Is there a time that you remember feeling deeply separated? You don't need to share this with me, but is there a time when you felt very alone and outside of that central place where the hustle and bustle is going? Can we go there?
Sometimes when I have like feelings of social overwhelm, it's like very much a feeling of being sucked from
Yeah.
being like faces here, but I'm like here, like out of the body from
Nice.
in the back. Yeah, I'm very aware of the back kind of area.
Mm. Yeah, like you're stepping into a mask, you know, and then trying to get out of it at the same time. Yeah,
Trying to retract, but also trying to show up. And
Yeah.
that sort of.
But wanting to kind of hibernate and ground. Maybe let's just do an exploration of a few of those different ideas. Is it more of a feeling that's driving you more than a visual?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Let's go there then.
Yeah,
let's go there. I feel like there's something about your arms, like you're almost like trying to grapple out of like a wrestling hold or something. Like you're like, I love it. It's like there's like an energy that's like coming over you, and you're really trying to like free yourself from that.
creating conflict for the self. Of like trying to go forward and back at the same time, maybe.
Lovely.
Or in and out.
Yeah, nice. Maybe we just go straight into, I don't think that's gonna, it's not right, is it? I think that tension takes us then into being off kilter. And as we're coming off kilter, there's a freedom that we're building in our movement.
Yeah, nice.
I think that feels more authentic, doesn't it? But at the same time, building of emotion. Gasp. Then let's find this melting space. Let's try that. The decision to have it be more of an improvisational piece. Yeah, we researched each state that Hannah went through and talked at length about each of those states and what kind of movement, what textural colours, feeling, narrative internally. You know, it was very collaborative in that respect that, yeah, each section had its own purpose and journey to keep the piece going along. And it just worked really well for that to be more improvised. We're not the same person as we were yesterday as we are today, and so to acknowledge that within an improvisation and access those very raw and emotional feelings on this day will be different from yesterday, and that's really interesting in terms of what quality of movement then comes from that experience. So, you know, although it didn't kind of go as I had initially planned, it worked out so much better and so much richer in so many ways. And I think that is testament to allowing space for everyone to come as themselves and to give what they can in each and every moment. Where do you feel in your own body like the heaviest, when you're feeling like quite overwhelmed? The shoulders.
Yeah, like everything gets a bit tight.
I have exactly the same spot, yeah. So can we feel like we're being thrown from there? Yeah, that's nice. I actually had like this visual of like a light hanging off a mic and then just hanging from the ceiling and then it just going round and then like catching the voice as it went. So if I was like, it would just kind of like catch, yeah. Don't know if that's possible. Do you do anything with voice or?
I always have voices like quite a inhibition, but I'm very curious with it at the same time.
Okay.
Growing up, I was always very like, I don't want to like be heard vocally.
Yeah.
It mixed with like, because my dyspraxia comes in with the use of voice and words. So it was always a little bit of like a, but maybe for that reason it's quite interesting to explore it.
Is something not on? Ooh!
Hello.
What did you do? Hey! Hey!
Hello.
Hannah, who we're working with as a dancer, the reason I'd love you to be in space is I sing and she plays guitar. So we were interested in whether we could record sounds and then put them into the sensors, like live. I've always been interested in tech and I've never kind of wondered why, but I think it's because I often feel like this shell isn't really it. And I feel like there's so much more about me that is so much bigger than what is here right now. And I think that technology enables us to go beyond this physical form and look at what else can we create beyond this shell. And also that it lasts, like it's not just something that, you know, performances are beautiful and they last a lifetime in your mind, but an actual tangible film or product that has its own life. And I find that really interesting, that the letting go process of film or of a podcast or something, I give it life and then it goes and does its thing, and I find that really special. And that it accesses people around the world, like that's incredible. Learning about tech, like learning from Derek and Demetrios about, well, having to learn how to do things. Actually, you know, having those skills now is really valuable. When you say facing forward,
right, so what you do is the light should always face that way.
Oh, towards the right,
so
got you.
Even on the other hand, it should also
Face the right, okay.
You're familiar with X, Y, Z and stuff.
Yeah. So Z up and down,
Yeah,
X
usually,
side to side.
X is almost always side to side. Sometimes Y and Z get mixed up depending which software you use, but we'll figure it out. How much of the music will be generated live, and how much of the stuff will actually be sounds already inside the computer?
That's something I can't answer because we've not been able to rehearse yet.
Okay.
But we don't. If it's going to be too complex, then at this stage we kind of need to keep it fairly
I would
simple.
I think for peace of mind and for
Yeah.
ease of execution, I would recommend having a so-called backing track. So you always have something to rest on, and then you improvise on top of that.
We've got one.
Okay, cool.
I would like there to be some improvisation, but yeah, if it proves too complex, then we'll leave it.
Okay. What I found was that with these sensors, running it through the laptop, that's great, but there's a certain amount of latency, as in a delay between the movement and the sound.
Right.
And if your music is very punctuative, then you kind of lose the connection sometimes. But visual and sound connection,
Right.
the public see you move and then a second later,
Yeah, okay.
which is a bit shit. If the music is quite flowy, then it should be okay.
Okay.
Usually swishy sounds and swishy movements tend to survive like delays a lot better.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
It's quite emotional, actually. I think because as a neurodivergent, with my dyslexia and ADHD, I often find it really difficult to it takes me a while to connect with the music and then to retain that and then put the movement on top. It's always been such a challenging process, and it's not that I can't do it, it's just that it's a hard thing for me to do, and this eliminates that component. And it's just so liberating to physically be able to control the music. It's amazing.
I love this idea of bridging nature with tech.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of our tech is designed on natural designs. There's so much reference and looking at how nature works and taking that into technology.
Yeah.
It's kind of a further development in a somewhat detached at the moment sense. But
Yeah. I feel like tech feels really synthetic, and I feel like that's a bridge we need to create. Things like that, like Saturn. We've got Saturn in there, and I'd love to keep incorporating elements of nature into the work.
yeah, there's I don't know if it's kind of relatable, but there's a tool that is it reflects electromagnetic signals, and it's an instrument. It's called an ether, and you hold it up to different things, and it spurts out the electromagnetic things that object is receiving, or that material.
In terms of sound.
Yeah, so if you hold it up to a phone, it's quite often white noise, kind of craziness, but someone worked out that if you hold it up to a tree, the tree was receiving the radio signals from a local radio station.
What?
Yeah, and so they could listen to the radio via this tool with the tree. It was kind of spooky.
That's crazy. Yeah. There's so much we don't know.
Also, Demetrius, who we were just speaking to then, he's talking about potentially getting projection as well that you can control. So you can kind of start and stop it and rewind, I think, but that'll be really cool as well.
The idea is to set up a camera and get the video feed of your performer instead of the dancer in the sample video. It will be your performer live video feed in the visual. Hope this makes sense. Colours can change. Have a look and we'll speak again soon. That is very cool.
I've been working in the creative arts now for a very, very long time, and I've been in situations where I've created works with zero money, and I've had to beg, borrow, not steal, but beg and borrow, and trust people. I've had to learn to, as a collaborator, trust people beyond what I'm necessarily comfortable with. I think that's kind of created this resilience within me of understanding that sometimes you have to let go to let in. So I can't control everything, and actually it's going to work better if I allow the space for people to make some choices that maybe I don't necessarily agree with, but for everybody's mental health, which is more important to me, I think we go with them. And because we were on such a small timeline, I had to compromise some of the creative decisions. Otherwise, I think people would have become ill, if I'm honest, mentally, because it was very, very short time period, and that's not something that I am willing to do as part of an artistic work, is compromise people's mental health. I want it to contribute. If that means there's no projection on the floor, which is what was decided, then there's no projection on the floor. If that means that the surround sound isn't going to work, then we'll leave the surround sound. I have learnt to process a lot of things through breathing, and that's something that I wanted to put in the piece. Breath for me is my biggest anchor.
I think in terms of the transition, I think it has to come from your breath, because that is the thing that's so dominant at that point, that has to shift. For me, once I've got control of my breath, I then begin to feel the breeze, and that on my body just feels so beautiful at that point, and the warmth. And if I can control my breath, I can control my mind. And so that is what I do, is I take a moment and I will just release the tension through my breath, and I will come back and just ground myself in what is and accept what isn't, and we go forward. Nothing is worth the struggle when it comes to compromising health for art. It's not my bag. I understand a lot of people disagree with that, and that's fine, but I feel that I get much better work from people if I'm caring of the people. They will give more. And I think that balance has taken me a very, very long time to find. I've not always been like that. In the past, I've provided challenge and provided them with challenge that they were willing to take. But as a leader, I've learned to facilitate a better space and a better work environment, but that has come through trial and error. So it wasn't a performance. I actually can't fake what's going on inside, which you may have realised. What you see is very much what is happening. I can't hide.
So, last night I was working till 10 after Huey went to sleep. I had to design the costume. They wanted me to sketch it. So I decided a liver. My stepdad and my really good friend passed away from liver cancer. And also, the livers are really interesting. I learnt this through my friend who passed away, Emma. The liver is the only organ, as well as our skin, that regrows. And the tumour was like this, 15 centimetres. Yeah, she was in a lot of pain. And basically, they were really optimistic because the liver regenerates and reshapes. And I thought that was a really nice thought of even when things are taken away from us, Like there is opportunity to regrow and mould and shape and change and come back stronger.
Yeah.
The heart. I thought like the heart is the one organ that connects the whole body. So like everything goes through the heart, and you know that is the main source of our existence. You know, without the heart we don't survive in this mortal state. And then the eye, I don't know why I like put it there.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense in a way.
Yeah, I feel like it sees everything, you know what I mean? And there's 2 embroiderists now who are working on the piece, yeah.
Sorry, Agnes.
There's some that are like,
I went down to
hey, good, how are you? Nice to see you. I'm really quite excited about doing something new and creating something that hasn't been created yet. At the very beginning of conversations with the costume department, it was very much a mask that I wanted to create with the face all being off center. The reason I wanted that was because often I feel like I have to put on a mask to come into a space and to please, you know, and to be nice. Shall we?
When is it? Next week. Next weekend. A week on Sunday.
So we have a week and a half.
Yeah.
Because you need those things before you can embroider it.
Yeah.
So whoever is making something has to make it like tomorrow. There are variations of tulle, typical ballet net. It's quite stiff.
Oh, okay.
Which holds its shape.
Good thing.
The other one is softer.
Do we know what this would look like under lights? Have you ever used it on stage?
If you go with white, it tends to reflect the kind of light,
Yeah.
rather than let it pass through.
Okay.
If you go shades darker, the light will pass through and show a bit more what is underneath it.
Okay.
It's just that the bounce of white is always quite extreme with theatre lights particularly, which
Yeah.
I guess they will be using.
Yeah. Because I was thinking it would be really interesting if when the light hit it, it kind of manipulated the colour on Hannah.
Yeah.
Just as this other layer of masking, like how we can maybe incorporate that into the costume.
Just a thought in terms of seams, we'll just have to be conscious of her eyes so that she can see.
Yeah, of course.
I'm also thinking about the arms, and I was thinking of like the movements that Derek was making with the sensors yesterday, especially like the flicks and stuff that he was doing to control the sound. It's making sure that the fabric allows for that movement
space. Yeah,
without
for sure.
kind of perforating.
I imagined that it was almost like a jumpsuit.
Okay. Oil suit type
Yeah,
with
like a bodysuit.
Yeah.
But then the shapes were what created the face of the body, if that makes sense. So the embroidery like created the illusion of the body underneath.
Yeah.
I'd like the hands to be in the net, but if that's too much.
But do you want them like gloves or just
Yeah.
a shape, a simple shape?
I don't mind.
But is it then quite fitted at this point, if you wanted to kind of... Because at the moment, I imagine it's away from the body a bit, isn't it?
I was kind of thinking, like, if it was an arm, for the arm to be ruffled in some way, and then also around the neck, just break it up a little bit, and also that covers the sensors then, and then same around the ankles, and then the sensors aren't so obvious, because the straps are about that thick. They're about 2 inches thick.
There's a headpiece.
Yeah.
But it's sort of close around the neck.
Yeah, like
sort of
Elizabeth
gathered a bit.
kind of, but yeah, not as constructed.
No, I know what you mean, but
Yeah.
just if it's ruffled here, it would give that effect, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, smoked a bit or something. Yeah. Might be quite nice. Sort of just elastic, a few bits of elastic that smokes it a bit. So you get this wrinkly kind of. if anything, stay into more the skin tones with it.
Potentially, I think it depends what colour the netting is and like what colour the actual embroidery on the surface is, because that all comes into play in that effect. I feel like we are restricted with what embroidery we actually put on it because of the time allowance.
We can create the drama
Through the light and the shadow and the embellishment and so on.
Yeah, there's quite a lot going on,
don't want it to be too much, and then it takes away from the embroidery anyway, so don't want to do that.
If you had lines on it, like eye or nose or something, then you would obviously get this illusion of a twice two body thing.
Yeah. Do you want an actual design, like a kind of vision of a design, or is it more like just fabric manipulation and bits and bobs? What's the vision?
Yeah, I really like this idea of like body parts on the fabric, whether that's like bolder colours.
Are they in anatomically right place? For example, would you have a heart over your face potentially?
Yeah. But I think the face I would love to be like this one.
That's what I mean. It's kind of doubling effect.
Yeah. Lungs up here, which would be quite nice actually in terms of like there's a feeling of like short of breath.
Up here, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And then like your heart is in your stomach.
I mean, could the ruffling be almost constructed like wings of lungs? If you're gathering anyway here.
Almost like veins, like weaving like down. Maybe the spine is the pleating to get into it.
Good idea. At the back, that's nice. So if you do something a bit like this at the back, it's quite ingenious. It does. It's a really nice technique.
You know, I'm often masking some feelings, like I've been very ill actually through the process, but I've not allowed that. So in some ways, you know, although a lot of vulnerability and honesty has come, I've also had to just accept that, okay, I'm not well, but I still have commitments and I need to kind of find a way to continue with the trajectory that I want as opposed to the one that my body wants. And so that's a choice to then kind of, find the energy to show up in a way that I want to show up, which, you know, is a mask. I guess like having that component in the costume was really important, and then having all the bits and pieces in the wrong places felt really important. And then, funnily enough, seeing the whole piece together as a whole, then seeing that actually the mask, it didn't work. I couldn't see Hannah. I feel like we're losing so much of her in terms of like connection.
Like a ripple?
No, in the headpiece.
Oh, really? You can't see her face, you mean?
For the performance, I think we need to see her face.
Okay.
Sorry, Alice. I love it as an aesthetic, but I just feel, in terms of like connection to the audience, I feel like we're losing her a bit. Yeah.
Well, 100% like you can't really see her, but I didn't know if you wanted it as like a magnanimous type figure.
It's perfect. It's exactly as I wanted it.
Okay.
But it's just when I'm seeing it from here, we're losing it too much. Let's see how she feels as well. I'm thinking that we take this off and just have the ruffle neck.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm losing so much of your face. It's beautiful. So I think let's get some like pictures with you in the full piece. But then I think we should just take that off. I think it's an obstruction that is not necessary, especially with the neck piece being so big.
Yeah.
I want to be able to connect with you as an audience member, and this is getting in the way.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Yeah. I couldn't see her essence that we'd worked so hard on revealing and connecting with. I then didn't want the audience not to be able to see that, so we decided to take the mask off, which was very cathartic and revealing of the process actually, and how important it is for those human connection and that relationship that we build over a period of time, and for us to see the truth and not to hide it with our masks. The costume was really beautiful. There was elements that I instinctively knew I wanted there, and only last night I had the words for them, and that was really great to kind of realise what they were. And the cuffs were, the women that I was working on the costume with were saying like, oh, maybe they look a bit clownish, and I was like, yeah, but I really like them and I'm not sure why, but let's keep it. And actually, you know, often people who are neurodivergent are the class clowns. And I actually hadn't, like, I knew that I needed it, but I couldn't access the words for it or understand why, but it's an instinct. So that kind of trust from the costume department at London College of Fashion was just really beautiful. This was really special to just have full control over that and have a team who were, you know, realising what was in my head. Sunny's gone, hasn't he?
How old is your child?
22 months. Yeah. Yeah. So a lot now, I have to just work while I'm in the space, and then when he goes to sleep. But sometimes I'm just too tired to do that. So
I mean, it's a full-time job.
it sure is. Yeah. But actually, it's improved my practice. I think having Huey and like seeing the beauty of life through his eyes is the most insanely rewarding thing, and also knowing that nothing is more important than him keeps me so focused on what I need to do at any one time. I am present and I am there and I will get it done, but I'm going home at that time because I need to be with Huey and he needs me. Sometimes you feel like you can't necessarily be honest. Like, in all honesty, there is a real pressure now, like having Huey, like my son. There's like a whole different level of pressure that I've never experienced before. Come sit with Mum. Look what Hannah's doing. Look, she's dancing, making sounds. Wow. And also a feeling of like, this actually could be the end of my career, like because like it's not sustainable for me to be travelling over from Australia regularly for work, and like my work is pretty much here. There's actually like a really, I'm like stepping into this void, and like I don't know what's going to happen. Like this really could be like the last thing I make in London, which is probably not, and I'm probably being really dramatic, but it's like such an unknown space. Like I just literally don't know what's going to happen next. It's just a huge sacrifice in a way, which I know like it's the right decision to be in Australia. It's also very sad because I was building something really beautiful here. My husband's from Australia originally, and we just knew it was a better life for Huey, and ultimately probably a better life for us mentally, or like lifestyle I guess, as opposed to mentally. And it's kind of working out that balance of like what makes you most happy. Is it lifestyle or like career, or yeah, so I haven't found that balance yet over there. And I think that's what scares me, is because like it took me so long to establish myself here, and literally as I just reached a point where work was flowing in quite nicely, I left. Yeah, but you know, I was saying earlier like I don't like to be comfortable. So here I am. Also, I think my process has completely changed. I used to be an over planner, and I used to have every bit of choreography down, notated, ready to go. I don't have that anymore, so I have to lean into myself and my feelings, and that's actually so much better because I have to share myself, you know, and actually I think that creates like so much better work. I also got to a very dark place after having Huey. Although it's been the most insanely magical experience, it's also a real juxtaposition becoming a mother. Mama's working. Sorry, Derek. Sorry. The only expectation is truth, and that can come in so many different forms. Truth can be, I'm really struggling with this, but if you're true to that feeling, yeah, I'm with you. But it's when you're like, there's a mask and you're fighting it, that's when it becomes jarring. There's the expectation. Then you're expecting that you should get into that exact feeling at that exact point, and then that becomes what the piece should be. But actually what we're looking at is, if you're frustrated, then that's where you are, and like that's the truth. That's the moment that you need to capture. And if you're fighting it, fight it. Let's see it. Yeah. You know? But as soon as you put expectation on how it should look, how it should feel, you're limiting yourself into this tiny little box. And actually, like, that's not really that interesting. Yeah. You're interesting as a human who has genuine emotions, who can physically explore them and let us in. That's interesting. With this project, what really kind of lit me up were the conversations that happened around the work. And I think Hannah and I really clicked. I'm really grateful that you're kind of going on this with me.
The last few days have been a bit of like a whirlwind, and so trying to ease things back into like focus and hopefully the process of like being, moving, listening, creating, outputting is helpful for that.
It's kind of like a really special place because we don't have any kind of like parameters that are fully set. Do you know what I mean?
Even sometimes the mentality of being like, oh, I've got to stick to this.
Yes.
This way of working,
Yeah.
it's all limiting.
For sure. So yeah, who knows what we're gonna create, but that's quite fun. So the music was created when I was in Australia. So that was a conversation between Robert Lai and myself, which was all about being able to create a world. That world I wanted to be a neurodivergent world where people who are neurotypical or neurodivergent could come into that space and feel what it could be like if we were more sensitive to one another's needs, to all the sensory experiences. He created a very transcendental composition that definitely absorbed me and put me into that trance. And then he put that, kind of created that into this one piece that we had as the foundation to the music. And then very instinctively I wanted to add vocals into the piece, which became anchors to the different sections. Having Hannah come into the project with such openness and vulnerability added so much to the project. Like, you know, it's immeasurable. Like, she has synesthesia, which means that she can see sounds and smells. She can see that and realize that in colour in her mind. So then that element of visuals came in, and the conversation of colour that also makes a massive difference to me as well. That kind of informed the colours that we would use and the tones in the visuals. We had a lot of conversations around our own personal experiences of the complexities that we experience with being neurodivergent. Hannah has dyslexia and myself dyslexia and ADHD. So yeah, having a lot of conversations around those personal experiences. What's the necessity to it? I mean, it's an armour, right? It's almost like a survival mechanism. Yeah. Maybe it's like not wanting to be rejected. I begin to like read facial expressions. So I often look up or away because I get so much information from people's faces that it changes what I say, you know, and I can't actually authentically have my own thoughts because I'm so conscious of fitting in with what someone else is thinking because I can read their face so well. When I did the podcast, I had a podcast and everything was just by sound, and I felt so vulnerable because I couldn't read anyone's facial expressions. I didn't know if they liked me. It was this thing of like wanting to be liked, which is such a pathetic thing, but once you know those things, you can then work with them, you know what I mean?
But also this thing of, I find that sometimes it's helping, is wanting to make the other person that you're in a conversation with feel comfortable maybe, or like, especially in something like an interview or like a podcast or any kind of conversation, it's like wanting it to become a shared experience.
Yeah. So I think there's a layer of like protection for me that I put around myself. So when someone is sharing, I just really have to like consider that. And also how we manage high-pressured environments and stressful environments. How can we create spaces when we're feeling that overwhelm that can then anchor us and bring us back into the realization that we have a choice? Like a feeling of not being in control.
Yeah, and kind of like in the dark.
Should I put like being dictated to, out of control? Or something like
disembodied.
You went somewhere, like soft colours or?
Yeah, kind of like dusty muffled.
Do they have meaning to you, orange and purple?
I feel like orange sits quite sense of comfort's the right word, but almost like safety. And purple feels more like an alien.
But it's a part of you
Yeah.
that's not you, like physically. It's like an entity of you.
Yeah, I guess so, but maybe more of a nickel, like a strange uncanniness.
Uncanniness, what do you mean by that?
Like it doesn't quite feel totally, I don't know if safe is the right word, but totally like...
Familiar?
Yeah, familiar, like it's almost familiar, but there's something quite a little bit off.
Oh, okay. That's interesting that those two colours come for you at the same time.
Yeah, it was kind of like orange was more the kind of landscape, and then the purple was kind of these like wisps coming in patches.
It's almost like a night sky in my mind. Like the orange is like a sunset, and the purple, you know, and the clouds go all those like moody, but yeah. Yeah, there's personality to them. And also like just the sound, like there's so many sounds outside of the space. Like it's nice to kind of like acknowledge them. Like I sometimes feel like when you're like boxed in these spaces, it's sometimes you can get lost in it, which isn't a bad thing, but quite like that feeling of being connected to the elements and kind of bringing those into the space. And also I think before we start any like run through of the work, I'd love you to just come home, whatever that means to you, but just find your like place in the space before you do anything. Yeah, so that every run through, like we gotta go somewhere. Yeah. Even if it's a mask that you're putting on. Hannah had some really interesting experiences that we then laid into the piece. Yeah, there's something really conversational, isn't there? Almost like there's two people trying to come together, but there's that disconnect.
Yeah, something about like accepting, rejecting, and that line being very blurred.
I think like I'm learning a lot about what my needs are in an environment, and for what my needs are when I want to feel safe and I want to feel like I can be vulnerable, and what kind of light and sound enhances that. And so I'd really like to kind of go deeper into that space than the kind of turmoil, because I know what that feels like.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like even these lights for me are quite harsh, and that definitely kind of has me feel a certain way. So I think I'd love to look more at how do we create like a tranquil space, a safe space. Yeah.
Definitely something to do with like tone and softness. I really find like wispy green.
The whole piece was very, very instinctive, and I allowed space for both mine and Hannah's instincts to have the space to play and fail and, you know, find what worked and what didn't and be accepting of that. So yeah, it was a very, very special process. Yeah, it was very rich in vulnerable conversations and vulnerable physical moments as well, that yeah, really kind of lent themselves to the project, and I'm really thankful that Hannah trusted me to go there, because that's, yeah, it's not an easy thing to do, especially when talking about your personal experiences is very new. You know, to then physicalize it is a whole new level. So I have tremendous respect for her.
I'm really, really delighted to be ending this weekend with a brand new work, a world premiere, a commission that we've been able to support, thankfully, through collaboration with Creative Lab, which is East London Dance and the London College of Fashion. So they very generously supported the Digital Body Festival by enabling two new works to be created. We have Boundless Body, which I have Elizabeth Arifien. A few days ago, and yeah, I'm really delighted to be able to show it this evening. Before we start, I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind putting your phones onto flight mode, because there is technology, surprise, surprise, involved in this performance. Elizabeth's been working with some sensors called SOMI1. They're motion tracking devices that generate sound. So the performer that you'll be seeing this evening will be wearing sensors on her body, and the sounds and visuals you see are being affected by that in real time. We are good to go, but thank you all for being here.
Does need a run in the space.
Yes.
So like the piece is 20 minutes.
Okay.
So, or like 18 minutes to be exact. So yeah, if we can just kind of keep an eye on things so that she gets that possibility. I know everyone's going as fast as they can, but I just want to give her tech. You know what I mean? Cool. Can we get any sound, Derek? Because if we have sound, we could maybe run the piece while they're setting up, but you wouldn't have visuals. Maybe let's wait for visuals. Is there anything we can do now to like test sound or anything? This project, you know, it was a new work, it was experimental, but now I think moving forward I know exactly what I need and I know exactly how to achieve that. I think it's a very, very hard thing to do, to reveal your truth, but I think the performance really stands as a testament to how incredibly inspiring and transformative it can be if we do take that mask off.